What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are back home from Portland. Both Evos made it back without issue. We do still have a little bit of tinkering to do on mainly the 10. I don't think we need to redo anything on the 8 at all. Maybe just like one reflash for a different elevation. I will send English data logs of both cars to make sure we're all good to go. But that 10 is having that stutter, like little cutout issue right when we're getting into boost. So I need to get that figured out because it's not all that fun to drive like that. So I'm not exactly sure when we're gonna get around to working on that car. There are a few other things that we need to get done today. We have the STI here. The AC doesn't work. Evo 8 AC does not work. Evo 10 AC does not work. I recharged this the other day and it all leaked out. So we have a leak on that. Both of those cars have a broken AC line. And then the brakes on the STI are severely destroyed. If you remember when we powder coated the calipers, we measured, I think it was the front rotors. They were like 3 to 4 millimeters below thickness, below the minimum thickness. So we picked up a brand new set of drilled and slotted rotors and pads for the STI. If you guys want to pick up this exact set that we are going to be running on this car, I'll have a link down below. To get today started off, let's work on the STI. Get the brakes on, try to figure out the AC leak, get the AC up and working, and we should be able to get the STI out of the shop, start working on the 8 and the 10. To get the brake rotor off, we're gonna have to unbolt the caliper. So there's two 19mm bolts on the caliper. Caliper will come off. If the rotor is stuck on the center board right here, all you have to do is thread in an M8 by 1.25 bolt into these threaded holes and it'll act as a pulley and pop that rotor right off. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the pads off right now as well. So there is a pin right there, pin right there. If we take those little clips out, this long pin holding the pads in will come out and the brake pads will fall off. To fit the new pads and the new rotors on, being that they're gonna be obviously much thicker than the old wore out stuff, we're gonna have to push these pistons all the way back into the caliper. So what I have are a few clamps. I'm just gonna use these clamps, protect the caliper with this towel, and we should be able to get those guys pushed back in. We got the front driver's side all finished up. Let's go ahead and bang out the other 3, and then my brother Austin's gonna come over, help me bleed out the brakes real quick, and we can move on to the AC issue. right, we got the brakes all finished up. I did realize after doing that first caliper, there is a much easier way to get the pistons back in to the caliper, and that is just by cramming a screwdriver in between the pad and the rotor and prying it apart. Being that we're replacing the pad and the rotor, not a big deal if we destroy both of those. Here's how she looks with the new rotors. I've always liked that drilled and slotted look. Looks super clean. Let's move on to our AC issue. I know it's a very, very slow leak, so I'm gonna go ahead and guess right now that it is an O-ring on one of the hoses, either where it goes into the compressor or it goes into the condenser. So I'm gonna go through, replace all of those, throw a vacuum on it, and if it holds a vacuum for over an hour, we should be good. Got all new O-rings in the entire system, so technically we should be good to go now. We have the vacuum hooked up, high and low side are hooked up, so if we connect this vacuum to the air compressor, to an air source, and we go to around like 25 pounds of vacuum and it holds there for 30 minutes to an hour, we should be able to charge the system and be good to go. All right, let's let this sit for a while. In the meantime, we can pull in the Evo 8 into the back of the shop, get that AC line swapped out, and get the AC up and working as well. So you can see the broken line right down there. I know you have to bend it to clear the O2 dump downpipe. It looks like someone bent it a little bit too far and it just snapped it. It's been like that since I got this car. So let's get that guy swapped out and see if this thing will hold some pressure. All right, we got this AC line on. As you can see how it's routed stock, it is definitely hitting on that O2 dump on the downpipe. So we gotta bend that back out of the way somehow without breaking the actual line. If we come back over to the STI, this thing's been holding the same pressure for about 30 minutes now. So I'm gonna go ahead and say the system is good to go. Let's get her charged up and we can go back to working on the Evo 8. That held fine this time around. We got it down to about 42 degrees, full blast on the AC, so that's plenty cool for me. Let's try and get this Evo 8 AC line figured out. I don't know how I am supposed to bend this thing without breaking it. Really do not think there is a way of bending this line here without some proper tooling, without completely snapping it in half. So I'm gonna grab that thing, I'm gonna go run around on my bike and try to find a shop local to me that is able to just throw a 90-degree bend. So if we could get like a 90-degree bend pointing straight down, that would be absolutely perfect. In the meantime, I wanna go test out these brakes on the STI. Let's go bed in these new pads to the rotors and see how good these things feel. What I'm gonna do to try and bed in these pads to the rotors is make about 3 to 4 stops from 45 miles an hour down to 0. Medium pressure, obviously not engaging or making the ABS kick in. And then we're gonna make about 8 to 10 stops from 60 all the way down to about 15 miles an hour with a little bit more pressure. And that right there should be enough to get the pads and rotors warm enough to bed into each other and get these brakes to work as they should. yeah, we definitely got those guys a little bit warm. Caliper's pretty warm, even the wheel is warm from those few stops we just made. Should be good to go there. Let's go find someone to bend up this line. I also need to find a way to get this, which is E85, into the Evos. Our barrel did show up today of, I think it's Thunderbolt E85. For the Evos, I know there's hand pumps, there's some air pumps, there's electric pumps. I'll try to find whatever pumps the most amount of gallons per minute and grab that for our 55-gallon drum. Really excited to get some E85 in the Evos again and make some more power. It's insane the difference that E85 makes. 366 on pump versus 505 on E, and 530 on pump versus 703 on E85. So we stopped by Harbor Freight, picked up a few goodies, got this 12 gallons per minute air operated barrel pump. That should be good for the E85. And then I actually found a tubing bender as well, which is a quarter, 5/16 or 3/8. So that should work to bend our AC line. All right, so this is what I've accomplished so far with the pipe bender. Let's see if that is enough right there to clear the downpipe. All right, it's still not enough. Let's keep bending it, keep going. I think our little $8 bender will definitely do the trick though. All right, boys, look at that. We got it figured out. As long as it doesn't leak, we should be good to go. So it looks like she is holding the vacuum just fine. This gauge is actually a little bit off, so when there's no pressure in the gauge whatsoever, it sits around like 8 to 10 PSI. So it's been at 20 pounds of vacuum for 30 minutes now. It's gonna be really, really nice having AC in this car. Since the day we got this car 2 or 3 years ago, we've never once had working AC in this thing. I've always been really hesitant to drive it in the summer because of that. It always gets really hot. It's gonna be really nice to have an AC in the car now. No matter what we do, I cannot get the AC on the Evo 8 to work. The clutch on the compressor will not engage whatsoever. So I did a bit of reading online and it appears that we potentially have to reshim the clutch on the compressor. It's a very common problem on 8s and 9s. So I'm gonna pull this car to the shop right now. I'll do some more research tonight. I'll probably order up some new shims as well, and we can tackle this project another day. But for now, let's get this thing out of the shop, get the 10 in the shop, and get the 10 up and going. This guy's gonna take quite a bit more work to get up and going. The AC line that broke runs from right here where this cap is all the way to the bottom of the AC condenser. So we're definitely gonna have to pull off the bumper, maybe the headlight, maybe the radiator. I hope not the radiator. That would be a lot of extra work, but let's tear into this thing, get her up and going. All right, so it has to connect from right there, which is right by the intercooler, runs all the way loop-de-doop-de all the way to right here. Big shout out to the dudes over at English Racing for supplying the line for this car. This line right here actually came off their world record 7-second Evo 10, which is pretty cool. Maybe knowing that, it'll make this car just a little bit faster now. So I finally got the AC line on. I've been kind of going off of Jared's car, which is Bobby's old Evo. It's kind of a pain to get, but we finally figured it out. So I'm gonna test it right now, make sure we don't have any leaks, and then we can get this thing charged. So when I was charging the system, I noticed it was leaking, and I pulled off this other hose right here that runs from the compressor all the way back to probably the firewall. This flange is actually separating, so we're gonna have to replace that line as well. But in the meantime, what's up, Jared? Ready to fix your shit?
Yep, it's nice and broken.
Jared's cat on Rose ended up breaking in half. So we're gonna give that a quick weld and get her fixed.
You're kidding me. This thing is huge. Oh my God. That is huge.
So we got Jared's factory cat all welded up. Definitely not the best welds in the world. And then we also got a new radio for his car as well.
This thing's massive.
It's gonna be much better than the one that's in there.
Oh yeah. It's easily twice as big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So SiGav sent this guy over. I think this is their newest model for the Evo 10. So I know it has CarPlay, it has Spotify. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing installed real quick. It should be plug and play and see how good it works. Should be pretty quick as well.
Yeah, it should pop right in. I'm excited.
So we got it installed in the car. Jared's key is missing. Thank you, sir. 10. I wonder what the 10 stands for.
Evo 10.
Probably. The dope thing about this one that my radio does not have is this one has the CarPlay and a Spotify, which is super, super nice.
And it fixed, did they know about the sound? Did you talk about the sound issue? It sounded bad. It sounded like the speakers were blown out. It would get super muddy if you went over like 70% volume. The speakers just sounded terrible. I didn't know the head unit influenced that so much, but after putting this in, it sounds
perfect.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
So this is what the CarPlay interface looks like. You have the GPS right here, and then that's your Spotify.
Yep. Yeah, it pulls up Spotify.
So if you guys want to pick one of these up, I'll have it linked down in the description box below. Huge shout out to SiGav for sending over that radio so I could surprise my buddy Jared with it. I know how terrible that old radio in that car was. Sounds so much better now. All right, let's get back to work on the Evo 10. I did just go ahead and order a new AC line. They make a aftermarket replacement one of this line right here for $40 versus like $200 for a factory OEM one. As soon as that line comes in, this AC system should be up and running. Technically, it does kind of suck. We set out to fix 3 cars AC today and we only got 1 fixed, the STI. Evo 8 should be easy fix. Evo 10 should be an easy fix. Just little issues here and there that we're gonna have to deal with, but let's get this thing back together. I did redo a few little things on the bumper. It's crazy how fast this front splitter gets destroyed. Check this out. Already getting worn down. Not a big deal though. As long as there's no holes in it, I don't really care. It's the bottom, not too worried about it. There was a mesh piece right here that we decided to remove. It always looked a little bit weird, mesh and then the intercooler right behind it. So I think it's gonna look a lot cleaner without that mesh, and just having the open intercooler should look quite a bit better. All right, we got it all back together. I think it looks much cleaner now without the mesh covering our beautiful intercooler. That's about it for all of the work in the shop today. What I want to do tonight is go on a cruise in the Evo 8. I have yet to feel that car on pump gas whatsoever. The only time I drove it was on the 85 and it hauled ass on the 85, but I want to see how it actually feels on pump gas when it's like 140 less horsepower and quite a bit less torque as well. So let's jump in the 8, get her warmed up, go on a cruise, go on a rip, and see how she feels. Just got in the Evo 8, the AC was on while it was warming up and I was cleaning up the shop or whatever. I got in here and it's extremely cold. So I put the temp gauge in here for your vent and it was down to 40 degrees and I turned off the AC, I turned it back on. I can hear the clutch kicking in on the compressor now. So I don't know exactly what's going on. If it works, it works. If it's not gonna work, I'll fix it later on. But for now, if it's gonna work without any issues whatsoever, that'd be really nice. That'd be handy. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I know the Evo 10 makes 700. This car made 505 on E, 366 on pump. But even with the Evo 10 on E85 and this car on pump gas, I swear this car is much more fun to drive. The response it has, no turbo lag. It's just so fun to rip around. It's like a little go-kart, especially taking it around corners and whatnot. It feels just so much more nimble and light and responsive over the Evo 10. I can see why a lot of people prefer the 8s and 9s over the 10s. I think the 10 is much more comfortable as a daily driver, and if you're gonna go on road trips and whatnot, the 10 is much more comfortable. But for like a little weekend warrior, I think I'd pick the 8, even with like half the horsepower. What's up?
Hi.
You wanna go for a rip? In the Evo 8? She's a low P mo. Do you like it low P?
I love low P.
Why?
It just sounds aggressive.
What car's funner, 10 or 8?
10. I mean 8.
You think 8?
I can't decide. Depends on what we're trying to do.
I understand.
If we're trying to go up on the freeway and, you know, go real fast, you're 10. If we're just cruising around town, you're 8.
You heard it here first from the one and only Bobby Waller. That's gonna be it for today, boys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you tomorrow.